What is up, members of the Rebellion? It is your friends, Hobbs Geek News, here to talk about today, episode 270 with Andor. We are going to wrap up Andor Season 2. I am Matt. With me, as always, is Lauren. And if this is your first time finding us, please, by all means, like, subscribe, share, follow anywhere that you can find podcasts. Search Hobbs Geek News. If you're on YouTube, please go ahead and hit the subscribe button. Help us out there. And then if you want to leave a review, comments, any of that kind of stuff, by all means, do so as well. We typically go into Beer of the Week, what we've been reading or watching, where we give you, comic book recommendations, or we give you movie recommendations that we're currently reading or watching. Then we go into some news before our main topic, all time-stamped in chat. And like I said, today we're going to be talking Andor Season 2, the monumental ending of Andor, as we roll right into the third season, known as Rogue One, a Star Wars story, which incidentally, like everything Star Wars, came out before Andor. So my beer of the week, I really felt it was appropriate, especially with the last couple of episodes. It's called Expressway. It is a double dry hopped IPA, 7.2% from Trillium Brewing out of, Massachusetts. And now, typically the Expressway, it's ways to get you to the Logan Airport, right? To take you somewhere. You get there very fast, whether it's a bus, it helps avoid traffic. It gets you there if you can't afford an Uber. It's pretty cheap and all that kind of good stuff, get you to Logan Airport in Boston, Massachusetts. Well, I felt with Cass and Clea and she's whole escape, that Expressway was the beer that I was going to go with this week. It felt very fitting. And, I'm drinking it out of an Andor mug that, we got a little Ewoks there. So that's what I got going on. Lauren, messing with your camera. Oh my gosh, how embarrassing. What do you have happening over there?
So I'm actually finishing my dinner beer, which is a Calusa beer.
Dinner beer, huh? Oh, wow.
But what I have on deck that I'm about to open is from Civil Society, which if anybody's had Civil Society, they make fantastic IPAs and pale ales and all that. And this is their pale ale called Sunset in Paradise, because this is essentially where Andor meets his
That's
fate.
Depressing, man. Yeah, this episode.
But it's so pretty too. With that, I mean, where did they film that? Like Rogue One, it's so gorgeous.
I'd have to look. I'm not totally sure. I can't remember.
And, what a missed opportunity for Mickey's new island to not have AT-ATs or stormtroopers walking around. That would be so cool.
I was thinking the same thing when I was there, right? They really didn't theme their islands out other than just the typical Mickey, but they're very bland. Their new island is
I haven't been to the new one.
Moment. Yeah, it would have been the perfect moment to have something Star Wars out there. How many Star Wars places? I don't know. Scarif could have been great. They could have themed that Scarif. Could you imagine how dope that would have been?
People would be concerned it was going to blow up. But then that'd be great for when you have to get back on the boat. Hurry, the Death Star's coming. Get on the boat.
Oh, that would have been fun. And they can do, man, yeah, that would have been awesome. That would have been a great moment.
A lot of people would have been confused, not know what was going on.
Yeah, right. Most people, I hate Star Wars. What is this? And then you got the people who are just super into it like us, and it would have been so much fun. What could have been?
Just look at somebody and be like, may the Force be with you, Rogue One.
They really ought to let us be in charge. I'm telling you, man, one day I'm going to do marketing for Disney or something, and I'm going to have such great ideas that are going to get shot down at the board. But god dang it, just know it.
I remember when I first started being a pass holder there, and I would look at things and be like, well, why don't they do this on the side of the road to make it cuter? Or why don't they put this over here? Because you have people pull over on the side of the road. Because you have people jump gates. Because you have people do all these stupid things.
Well, yeah, that's why they hide the parks, because people are stupid. Yeah, they're dumb.
So I get some of the things why they don't do them, but this is why we can't have nice things.
It's true.
Stormtroopers walking around the beach, that would be cool. And
be hot.
They walk around the parks, it's just as hot.
Okay, true. Okay.
And it's actually probably even a little bit hotter because there's no ocean breeze.
Or they wouldn't even been, they could have been the beach type colored stormtroopers too, which would have been cool. The ones that are green outfitted, because they're not always white. That would have been cool. Maybe rebels walking around. Who knows? Anyways.
Just a giant AT-AT statue like the one outside Star Tours would be so cool.
Nobody's jumping fences on your private island that you got plenty of space for. I get also, though, kind of still have to be thoughtful towards the species on the island too. So maybe that's why, but
no shooting them with blasters?
No, you can't shoot them with blasters, but we got ideas, man. I got a couple ideas, but let's go ahead and go into what we've been reading or watching. Lauren, why don't you kick us off this week? You have you have some things on there. What do you have?
So I did the Wolverine run. This has been the main Wolverine run that's been going on. This was, I believe, issue 9. So So this is the run that I've been loving with the Wendigo, and I keep saying everything I expect to happen doesn't happen. It has a twist, but it's still classic Wolverine.
Oh, yeah.
Well, this issue was very much so kind of predictable with Wolverine. Like, there was something I was really excited about in the last issue, and now I'm like, oh, are we going this route? Is this all this is going to be? So I'm hoping the next issue starts surprising me again, because I didn't love this issue as much as I've been loving this series.
Yeah.
So I'm like I'm going to give you my honest review. Like, this was, I mean, I still loved it. I still rated it high, and like, you still get a very surly Wolverine drinking beer at the beginning, listening to some bigots talk nonsense about mutants in the corner. But it was a little too predictable. And what I've been loving about this is that it hasn't been. So there's that. X Factor just wrapped up with their 10th issue.
That's right, it did, yes.
People are sleeping on this. I haven't really heard anybody talking about this, and it's so
I haven't either, surprisingly.
And I wish more people were talking about it, because I think that's why they had to wrap it up in issue 10. It didn't necessarily feel rushed, but it definitely could have kept going. It also didn't feel like a permanent end, so I'm sure these stories might continue elsewhere.
Hopefully.
But it's so funny because it just constantly is making fun of itself. You're laughing the whole time, but there's still a great story about like mutants getting taken advantage of, and like, you know, all the mutants had to flee Krakoa, which you're seeing that in a bunch of the issues. That's a issue going through a bunch of the comics right now.
Right.
And it's just so damn funny. It's hilarious.
It is, yeah, it is one that people haven't talked, and I think that's actually why I'm pretty sure I saw on social media that they confirmed it was supposed to run for 11, but due to sales, they had to wrap it up in 10.
Which is a shame.
Which is unfortunate.
Yes.
And especially for something X-related, you know, it's kind of surprising, and they're phenomenal creators as well, so it is a bit surprising.
When it's such a fun spin that, you know, what they did, you know, it's The Boys meets like Legends of Tomorrow. That's the vibe I got. It's Marvel's Legends of Tomorrow meets The Boys.
Yeah, that is true. That is a good point. What else you got? I see you got a couple of things in here.
I did finish Star Wars A New Dawn, so I have the full review of that up on Nerd Initiative as well. That's the story of Hera Syndulla and Kanan Jarrus meeting, and my favorite part about it is Kanan is somebody who loves drinking, and he is a smartass. He's not the Kanan Jarrus that we know. And so I thought that was really funny to hear him, you know, talk about like, oh, I could really go for a drink right now. I'm like, what? But so that was really good. And then do you want to go into your comics and books before I go into my show?
Do that, because I didn't really watch it. I finished How I Met Your Mother, but, you know, I've seen that before. And yeah. Anyways, I'll start with Godzilla vs. X-Men, actually, by Fabian Nicieza, if I said that right. Oh, man, these names are kind of hard for me. Emilio Liso, Federico Blee, and Clayton Cowles. Now, the cover artists were Tony Daniel and Marcelo Maiolo. This was really cool. Now, Godzilla's been out there traveling the multiverse, fighting everybody, apparently, because he's fought the Avengers, he's fought Justice League, he's fought Power Rangers, and in some shape or form, Godzilla has to maintain some canon continuity. So I would love to see how all this ties together, because Toho demands it.
Does he?
He does. Believe it or not, yes. They are very strict rules on Godzilla, but this is excellent. It's got Professor Xavier, you know, Gambit, Storm, and Beast, and Wolverine, of course. Sorry, I blanked for a second. Jeez. They find out the Beast, and Professor Xavier is basically trying to, they unlock a certain person. They steal this thing. I don't know what it's called off the top of my head. I can't remember now. It's like this green melts into, you can basically, what happens is they put all of their powers together and they fight through this being that they kind of steal. And Professor Xavier is going into Godzilla's mind. He feels the rage, the anger, and how humans don't understand Godzilla. And now, as long as the humans don't understand or are afraid of what Godzilla is, it will always be this constant fight between the two, which is really interesting because, you know, it's about basically the same.
Can relate.
Yeah, exactly. That's what it was about. Now, I also read Supergirl #1 from Sophie Campbell, Tamara Bonvillain, Becca Carey, DC Comics. It was really good. So
Bonvillain, you know, what a cool last name. It's like Bonvillain.
I know, I was thinking that too. I was like, that's a pretty cool name. Now, of course, Supergirl is always being compared to Superman. People make mention of it as she's saving Metropolis. And then she gets a call from her parents. She decides she's going to go back home. And after a couple of weeks, she goes back home. Suddenly, nobody remembers who she is. And she was feeling very certain ways about going back home because it resurfaced the past. I can relate to a lot of that. So this comic was very relatable. And nobody remembers who she is. Somebody has taken her place as Linda, is what she used to go by instead of Kara.
Linda, and, that's interesting.
Yeah. And now,
makes me think of Linda Carter.
It's a Supergirl there that was said, I told you this imposter would come. She's using magic and things like that. And so everyone's afraid of this Supergirl that we know and love, Kara Danvers. And so it's really interesting. The artwork is really bubbly and colorful and pretty cool how they changed up Kara's, identity and things like that. And then Aquaman #5 from DC. This is probably my favorite issue of the run from Jeremy Adams, John Timms, guest artist Jefferson Sauzinski, Rex Locus, and Dave Sharp. It's basically an episode of Indiana Jones in a comic book. If it was Aquaman in there, Arthur's, and also at the same time just very stoic and fun punching, and the way they try to go undercover. It was just a really good comic, a really good read. And John Timms is knocking out of the park with Rex on the artwork and the colors in this book. It was so freaking good. And then the last book I got is Absolute Batman #8 from DC again. Scott Snyder, Marcos Martin, Munsa Vincente, and Clayton Cowles. This is the Mr. Freeze issue where Batman was captured in the last issue. Spoilers. Is Bruce Wayne. And what's really good is this transitions into a body horror style comic book. And so this Mr. Freeze is kind of like a grotesque figure that lanky, and its skin is scaly and gross and long fingers. It's very alien body horror, and Batman has to fight a group of Gotham elites who were frozen and kind of turned into the same thing. But as he's hitting them, their bodies just turn to mush.
Wait, is this? Okay.
Yeah.
I did finally read the one where he punts a child. I was like, oh, that's what Matt was talking about. That he punts a child. And so as soon as Batman kicked the child, I was like, oh, that's amazing? What Matt was talking about. Yeah, I read that a couple weeks ago.
Oh my God, wasn't that good? It. Oh no.
I just started laughing.
Yeah, this is issue 8, and the next issue setting up Bane and everything like that. So Bane is coming, the big beefy Bane that everybody's been kind of seeing the artwork of around. If you know the Absolute Batman series, you know you're about to get some dope stuff. So that's what I've been reading. Haven't really watched anything. I might be checking out Final Destination, the Bloodlines this weekend. I'm not totally sure yet, but that's what I got going on. Now,
Final Destination. Will we ever be able to drive behind trucks with logs again?
Absolutely
not. The answer is no.
I think their marketing team even had a truck with logs on it that was advertising for Final Destination, actually.
That's genius. That is absolutely genius. I swear I was still like, it happened not long ago all of a sudden, because we don't really see like, logs. We're not doing, but occasionally you do. But like anything that's like cylinder like on the back of a truck. I think we were on I-4 one day, and I just started, I'm like, I gotta get out of this lane.
Get out of this. And then you're riding underneath like Clark Griswold of a tractor trailer because you just suddenly swerved.
Good times.
What's the show you were watching? It's still Dead City, right?
Dead City, yeah. So episode 2 came out. I'm liking this season a lot more than I did last season, because I enjoyed last season 1, but it was my least favorite of the 3. Like, I want to be honest with my reviews. I'm not gonna, just...
Well, no, that's what you should be doing.
Amp it up. So Herschel in the comics... In the very last episode of the comics, or the very last issue, Herschel is a self-entitled little shit. He is, so anybody who doesn't want spoilers
for a second, I was like, wait, Herschel died in season 2 of Walking Dead. I'm confused. Who's this?
No, Herschel the son. Sorry, my bad.
Okay, it took me a second.
Herschel, Maggie, and Glenn's kid. So in the comic, he has like a sideshow of walkers. Basically, they've eradicated walkers. Like the newer, younger generation doesn't even like see walkers. Like they have a whole system. Wow. They've got it under control. Well, all of a sudden, Carl and Sophia, who like have a baby together and are living together, and they're both alive, they see a walker in the front yard where their kid's like playing, and like Carl goes and kills the walker, and he's like, what's going on? Well, Herschel's all mad. You killed my property. That was my property. Like he would charge for people to come see a walker. And then Maggie, who like, and keep in mind, I read this years ago, so if some of this isn't exactly correct, please call me out. Because I've only read the whole comic once. But then Maggie, who's like governor or president or something, they like call her and they're like, hey, your son's being a little shit. He's trying to sue Carl now for property damage.
Oh my god.
And like then Maggie has to like yell at Herschel. So I'm wondering, because Herschel's still like this like little hormonal teenager, but there's more going on, and like there was something that happened in actually I can by this point episode 3 has come out too. So yes. Episode 3 I actually liked much more so, where they're going with Herschel, because there's more to him. He's not just a disgruntled teenager. He's also really feeling the effects of the fact that his mom has not moved on from Glenn's death, and because Negan is a constant reminder, and Herschel's like, look, I didn't even meet the guy, and like we have to live our whole life about how mad you are and how hard this is, and it's like he needs her to move on just so that he can have like a normal life in the zombie apocalypse. But there's a lot more going on. They're trying to attack. Maggie's being kind of forced to attack New York. At the same time, Negan's being forced to defend New York. And so there's a lot going on, but I'm really just loving seeing New York in an apocalypse. It's really cool. Just like when they show like the Statue of Liberty, and we didn't get that in the original Walking Dead.
No, we actually really didn't. We were basically in rural Georgia for the entire series, pretty much.
And, we saw a shot of Atlanta once, but even in Daryl Dixon, you see the Eiffel Tower, you see the Louvre.
I always like seeing those. It's always makes it fun, a fun element, because we're so used to seeing these things in pristine condition with bustling life, and so when we see these things and even Endgame, I thought did it pretty well. How they went over New York City and the Mets was empty, their stadium, and all of the things there, it was empty. And I thought that was a pretty cool thing that they did. So I always appreciate that, just like you do.
Yeah. And it shows too, we were so focused on certain characters in the show, and it just shows, literally everybody in the entire world is being impacted by this. Because you think right now there's horrible things going on in one part of the world, and we're sitting here talking about TV shows and comic books in another part of the world. Whereas in the Walking Dead universe, literally everyone has trauma. Yeah,
that's very true.
But a lot of people gave up on Walking Dead, and I'm really glad I didn't.
Really? Okay.
Jeffrey D. Morgan too he brings so much swag to Negan.
You know what? I'm proud of you for sticking with it, because at least somebody's watching it, because I'm not.
I loved how the comic ended so much. I did take a long hiatus.
That's fair.
And then finished the show.
I think that's fair to do for a lot of shows that go on for a long time too. If you take that little break from them once in a while, you kind of almost have to, and then you can come back and maybe fill in later on. And that's also like the beauty of streaming and what streaming was kind of meant to do originally, and has definitely fallen away.
It's not like I have to set my. I never had a DVR. I was going to say record on my VCR.
Yeah, right. And so,
I just have to wait and find out if Ross and Rachel will get together when it's on syndication.
Still waiting. Did Ted ever meet the mom? Did she ever? What happened to her? I have no idea.
Watching that. I keep trying to warn her.
I just finished it again, a rewatch, and never gets easier. But let's take a quick ad break, and we will be right back with some news. All right, we're back with some news. Now, kicking up the news this week, we have a couple pieces from Marvel. So Wonder Man will be 8 episodes, 30 minutes each. It releases this December, which I think is pretty interesting. 8 episodes, 30 minutes each. I'm interested to see how that goes, because typically they love that 6 episode, 30 minutes. And this is the final show, final project that was under the old management. We thought Ironheart was, but it's Wonder Man, actually.
Hopefully they do him right, because they're bringing in a character almost nobody knows about unless you read comics.
Yeah.
So
I'm excited for this too, because we've been hearing about it for a long while, and we haven't gotten anything, and they finally just casually, it's coming out this date, and by the way,
will it be Christmas time?
Oh, I wonder. It's a good question. I hope
only asking because Hawkeye was, and it was released in December.
And it released in December. So hopefully, in another project that we were all wondering, hey, where's your trailer for? Ironheart, that released their trailer this week. It will have a 3-episode premiere on June 24th, and then the final 3 will premiere the following week. It's interesting that they're doing that, but it kind of feels like they're dumping it. However, Ryan Coogler is involved, of course, as an executive producer. In the trailer, I thought looked great. I thought her suit was awesome. I'm actually pretty interested in this. It's something I've obviously been wanting to see, waiting, where's the trailer? I was part of that crew. And the trailer finally came, and I'm like, this show looks pretty good. So I hope
we're going to have to rewatch Wakanda Forever. Oof, get the tissues out.
No, yes, you're right. And we'll do a little
Not in a fun way.
No, we'll do a little deep dive.
Well, we did, we'll recap Wakanda Forever for sure. And we did actually do a comic book origin on her before Wakanda Forever came out. So we can even link that, or, just do maybe just the basics again real quick.
Yeah, we'll go in a little bit there. No worries. We got you guys back. And then the last little bit of Marvel news is that Captain America Brave New World will release on Disney Plus May 28th. And honestly, folks, this movie is so underrated. I am too, because I watched the fight scene, the flying when him and Falcon are flying around the Celestial, and they're all that kind of, spoiler alert, I guess. Ooh.
Falcon gets hurt.
Yeah. Okay. But that sequence was really well shot, and I thought it was really awesome. It was one of the more beautiful sequences, especially for air-to-air combat, that I've seen in a movie in a while as well, since Top Gun.
They did do that well. Yeah. I don't want to spoil it, because I know a lot of people wait for streaming, especially Tabby. So
yes, we won't go into it anymore. If you did listen, you can go into our Brave New World, spoiler-filled review that we put out.
But it was amazing, like what they've done with the CGI and everything with Sam has been awesome. They really have killed it with the shield, with the wings, with everything.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm stoked. So, what other news do we have that?
So, Fallout has wrapped filming and will be out this December. Season 3 has been officially greenlit, and they said they'll probably end up doing 5 to 6 seasons total if all goes according to plan. I like that they have an end date and that these networks aren't pushing them to keep going because the show's doing good. Lost, ABC. We're talking to you. So, yeah, I'm excited for this because this is another one I didn't play the game that I really like the show.
That's true. I feel like 5 or 6 seasons as well is that sweet spot of before you drag on too long with a series and kind of start getting loose on ideas.
Unless you're creating a universe, yeah.
Well, right. And the show is great. And that and Wonder Man coming out in December, that's going to be pretty sweet because that's going to fill up.
I hope they're both Christmas themed.
I do too, because that's the problem, right? Is we always watch holiday stuff around then.
I know. That's all I want to watch.
Juggling and Hallmark Christmas movies are in December.
No, I don't want to watch that.
I hope Fallout has a Hallmark Christmas movie themed episode.
Maybe they'll have like a flashback and it'll be Christmas time in one of the episodes.
Maybe. That'd be fun.
Because then they had like, oh, and remember when the show started and they had like the whole, like, was it like Nat King Cole playing or something?
Yeah.
Like somebody old school was playing like, if they could have some old school Christmas music.
Oh, yeah.
That'd be fun.
Oh.
You think it's too late to message Amazon?
Maybe. Well, they always do reshoots. Who knows? I don't know. But now, speaking of, we got something else. What'd you think of that Superman trailer that we got? Did you watch it?
Nope. I didn't watch the Riri one either. I am not watching trailers. I did watch the Peacemaker one, though.
Okay. That one looks good.
It does look good.
That comes out August. But the Superman trailer, I'm not going to go in depth since Lauren hasn't watched it. I know she's way better than I am. Oh my God.
I used to watch all of them, and then I felt like I saw half of Deadpool and Wolverine before it came out.
All I got to say is James Gunn 1000% gets Superman. The quips, there's a scene between him and Lois I won't talk more about. There is some other sequences within that film. I mean,
I'm already super excited for it.
Just absolutely insane. And I saw somebody mention, they were like, essentially, I feel putting Guy Gardner and Hawkman and Hawkgirl in here, how is he going to juggle all these characters in a Superman movie? And in my head, I go, as we're waiting for 76 characters to fill our screen on Doomsday for Marvel.
I was just thinking of Endgame.
And then somebody was like, yeah, well, that they had all these years to build on that. And then I go, no, James Gunn did Guardians of the Galaxy, right? James Gunn did a team-up movie. James Gunn he gets it, man. I have no doubt in my mind he gets it. So please spare me that. And
a lot of them are coming in Peacemaker, which comes out after Superman.
Yeah, and not to mention the fact that I hate now too. People are, what are you more excited for? What do you think is going to be better, Fantastic Four or Superman?
I think they're going to be different.
They're going to be different movies, first and foremost, right? Secondly, why can't we enjoy both? God forbid you. I am more excited for Superman.
I am too.
You can like both. It's not one or the other. You can like both. It's okay.
This is the first time ever I've been more excited for a DC movie than a Marvel movie.
The tides are changing, man. I'm telling you.
I mean, I don't know if they're changing. Well, I think it's also like I'm not super familiar with the Fantastic Four. I'm very familiar with Superman. You will be
by the time we do our episode on it. So
that's true. Yeah, because I've only read the X-Men crossover Fantastic Four stuff. And I know Namor likes Susan Storm.
Yeah. And, speaking of Superman, Supergirl has wrapped filming as well. The Supergirl Woman of Tomorrow. So I'm pretty excited for that one. But I know we have a few more pieces of news, Lauren, so why don't you take us home?
So Percy Jackson Season 2 is coming out in December. And HBO Max or whatever it's called, right? Oh, no, it's back to HBO Max.
Did you ever stop calling it HBO Max? Because I didn't.
No, absolutely not.
Good news, everybody, because it's going back to HBO Max, whether you stopped calling it HBO Max or not.
So there's hope for the Gulf of Mexico. So Bear Season 4 is coming out June 25th, all at one time, which you do not agree with.
I don't, because you don't let your audience marinate on an episode. People are going to speed through that season and then it's forgotten about in 2 weeks versus look what happened with Andor, 3 episode batch at a time.
But Hulu usually does week to week.
No, they're doing,
like Handmaid's Tale stretches out.
Well, for some reason the bear drops all at once. And I so disagree with this model now because there's so many things coming out all the time that the week to week has proven to keep the conversation going because then you have people that either don't watch it because they don't have time because everything else, they start to watch it, they fall off, or people that rush through it to spoil everything for everybody else, and we don't have the time to watch an entire season of television in a weekend, and so it's forgotten about in no time. So I very much disagree with the dropping everything all at once. You got to break it up some.
I do like how Daredevil did it, where we got like 2 episodes and like,
That
okay,
was
so our
fun.
last piece of news, and then actually we can start talking about Andor. I agree, the 2 episodes is perfect. So Squid Game season 3 comes out on Netflix June 27th. But yes, Andor, I felt like the 3 at a time was a little much, but 1 is not enough. I feel like 2 episodes at a time is a sweet spot.
I can get my fill with 2. 3, you're right, because I can't be staying up that late every night.
1 is a tease. I'm like,
1 gets you finally get into it.
Yeah.
Especially,
I'm not even done with this beer.
Yeah, that's true too. Depending on how long your shows are. So,
yeah, but some of them are 30 minutes. That's not long enough to get cozy and enjoy it.
That's not long enough for me to start to fall asleep on the couch sometimes.
That's not long enough for me to hear Josh snore. Oh, wait, yeah.
How am I going to be? Yeah, that's more than plenty enough, But yeah, speaking of Andor, though, let's go ahead and take one other commercial break, and we are going to come right back with some Andor Season 2 wrap-up, man. Let's do this thing. What up, dudes? We're back. We're going to talk about Andor. We're going to spoil the shit out of Andor, all right? We are going to go into everything. The series has just wrapped up. It's honestly kind of bad. I'm kind of depressed about, honestly, straight up really depressed actually about that, because it was so, I'm just going to tell you right now, I'm going to gush, because I will tell you straight off the bat that Andor Season 2 is probably perhaps my favorite season of television I have probably ever seen, and it's without a doubt the single. What is going on over there?
I was taking my beer out of my koozie. I don't know why I did that next to the mic. I'm sorry.
I'm in the middle of a monologue.
This is why I usually mute myself, but then I forget to unmite myself. I don't know what to do. I need to put a giant like mute unmute sticker on my. Go ahead. Sorry.
I am monologuing.
I'm like the janitor in the back that like knocks over the trash can during the inspirational speech.
You know what? No. Yeah, we can just go. Dang it.
My bad.
This is what the villains feel like. So that's what it feels like.
This is your villain origin story right here.
Yeah, no, I was just going to say this is probably the best Star Wars we've ever gotten. The best 3 runs of Star Wars we've ever gotten. The best season of Star Wars we've ever gotten. The most intense Star Wars we've ever gotten. And I'm actually really upset when I found out that Coruscant was filmed in Valencia, Spain, because we were supposed to be there last summer, even though they weren't filming then. They filmed this 2 years ago, I think. And
we could have said we'd been there.
That's what I'm saying. We could have been to Coruscant, okay? And I'm really sad that those damn whales in the middle of coming across the ocean and we had to slow down and miss Valencia. I would have traded.
Oh, maybe they were Purgles.
I don't care. They didn't let us see Coruscant, so yeah. I would have liked to have seen
a Purgle.
Overall thoughts before we go into some spoilers, Lauren. What were your thoughts overall?
Overall, I absolutely loved it. I thought it was obviously heartbreaking. It made me love Rogue One a little bit more, and I thought they beautifully set everything up. They made you feel even worse for Andor because now you're attached to him, and of course you know what's going to happen to him the whole time. But it gave you more of a sense of like, because we open Rogue One and he immediately just kills this guy, and then he's just like seems like he's a little bit heartless at times, and so I feel like this just made everything make just so much more sense. Yeah, no, I loved
it. It really did. It was just, the first episode kicks off, with 1 year later. That's from when we last saw them, and Cassian's going undercover at high risk. It's Mon Mothma's, wedding weekend begins for her daughter. The Ferrix survivors' sanctuary is threatened. That's where they're on that wheat planet. And everything's going on. Cassian starts off by stealing that TIE Avenger, which is a callback. We finally get some TIE Avenger, and he doesn't. He was me driving the Millennium Falcon. Okay,
I was gonna say he reminded me. Yeah, it was like when Logan drove the Smuggler's Run the first time, the Millennium Falcon. That's what it was making me think of. I was laughing during that scene.
Yes, that is 1,000% me right there. To a T, trying to fly the damn Millennium Falcon, and it's so good. I mean, I loved how they opened with that. And, going into episode 2, it's where he gets stranded on that. And we see the warring factions, how the rebellion is not there yet. Because when we first meet the rebellion in A New Hope, they're built. They're there. They're ready. But in this, they start to get there. Cassian and Andor kind of built the foundation a little bit with Luthen in season 1. Now, in season 2, there's many different factions. You got Saw Gerrera. You got the Yavin.
And they don't all get along, which is makes sense if you have a whole bunch of rebels. Obviously, they're not all going to be like, yes, sir.
Yeah, exactly. And that's what we see here is the squabbling rebel factions, and Deidre is dealing with her new assignment. And so this is where they essentially start to talk about Gorman.
Stone cold. Do you know she actually researched what psychopaths are like, and she said women who are psychopaths tend to get other people to do their bidding for them, which is what she was doing with Cyril.
Oh, Cyril. Cyril was a simp. Oh.
So, starting from the beginning, like right away they said shit. I'm like, did they say shit in Star Wars? But good for them.
They do. Yeah.
But the whole stuff with
Shit
Bix.
now? They say shit
I was
now.
like, with Bix,
What
I was like,
happened?
well, they're with Bix. I was like, they're not going to have like a rape scene in
Oh,
Star
yeah,
Wars.
that happened
And then
episode
I was
3,
like,
yeah.
I think I separated these by 3. But I was like shocked that she even said it. I thought they were
Yeah.
just going to infer it, but the fact that she actually said it, I was like, wow, they
This is
went there.
heavy.
But that's war.
It is, and that's showing...
It's disgusting, but that's what it is. The guys who have never had power before, they're suddenly given power, and she's gorgeous.
And
Not that makes it okay at all.
How
Oh my God,
often
no.
do we see, I mean, look at what a lot of enemies or, Russians, or look at the wartime things. It doesn't even have the Russians, right? The Americans in Vietnam, for example, these imperialistic armies have gone in and
there's good guys
notoriously
and bad
raped
guys
women
everywhere,
and
yeah.
done really evil things. And especially what I enjoy is this is where we're really seeing the difference between the Star Wars that we knew and grew up with, that the Empire was a bit of a joke, versus no, these people are awful. There's no redeeming qualities with the Empire. As we see in episode 3, the one creepy captain dude's there. He's trying to rape her. He gets killed. That's where our dude Brasso, he unfortunately gets killed, and B2 Emo gets left behind, and it was really sad. It was, but in a beautiful way almost too, because it was very ceremonious. How, there was no, he stopped briefly, Andor did, as he flew in the TIE fighter, blowing everybody up. I thought that was awesome.
Oh,
he
but
still
it
doesn't
wasn't
know
like
how to
a
do it.
moment. I get what you mean. That's how I felt.
Just
Well, I don't want to do
unceremoniously.
it. Yeah. I was going to say something else, but I don't want to spoil something else.
Right.
Yeah, it felt like I was like, oh, he can't be dead, because it wasn't a super dramatic moment.
Exactly. And Cass kind of checks on him and moves on fast. And I was just in my head, oh, he's definitely not dead. He's going to come back at some point. No, he died. That's war, man.
He's gotten used to losing those he loved.
And that's the other thing.
I think Bix would have been different, though. Yeah.
Yeah. And, where's Brasso? And then he just gives her that look, and they have to get in the TIE fighter, and then they have to get away. And it was very rushed. They had to get away. They had no choice. Yeah. They got sold out.
Well, I love that right away you see like Luthen coming to Bix, and it's like it shows you how much has happened that we didn't see. Like, okay, they're familiar with Bix now, not just Cassian.
Yeah, that's a big one too. Yeah, because this is when the next 3 kick off. They're at that safe house. What's up? Tell me.
You were talking about the dance, though. The fact that they did the raid simultaneously with the dance, I thought was absolutely beautiful. And just to see Mon Mothma go off like that, where she's just, what she said to her, oh my God, I wanted to slap her daughter across the face.
Oh, I wish you were drunk now, because she was like, my mom was drunk on my wedding.
And I wish she had told me this. Because what she heard was, oh, you didn't want to marry my dad. You don't love my dad. You didn't want this life. You didn't want me.
To be fair, her dad isn't a complete garbage human being, as it turns out, because the day after Mon Mothma got away, he was sleeping with
her. Well, that was a year later.
Sister-in-law. But you realize that was her daughter's. That was the mom of the guy that their daughter married.
Oh, I did not pick up on that. But that was a year later, because I thought like, wow, that was quick. And then I realized, oh, okay, this was because it was the time jump.
It was a year later.
But he probably thinks, and I'm not defending this guy at all, but he probably thinks she abandoned him. But him being this POS was beneficial to her, because they were like, oh, she's moving funds around because her husband has a gambling problem. Like, oh, they're fighting because he has it. Like, so it worked out well.
I would have never done it.
Oh, and I just started Reign of the Empire.
Ooh,
and it
book.
takes place right after that one. No, not Reign of the Empire, because this one literally just came out. Why do I keep doing that? Heir of the Empire? I don't know. Anyways.
Is that the Thrawn one? Heir of the Empire? Okay, no.
Mon Mothma is actually on the cover, and it's the scene where she's in front of the Senate and she says Palpatine's a bad dude. So that's the cover. It's called Mask of Fear.
Oh.
By Alexander Freed. So I just started that, and that takes place right after Order 66.
Oh,
but
damn.
It's a lot. So far, I'm only like 80 pages in, but it's a lot of politics. And she says she's to her husband, she's like, her husband's really good at smooth talking people and she's like, can you please get this person over there to stop talking about this specific thing? And of course, in his head, he just thinks, oh, it's all politics. He doesn't know she's working for the rebellion.
Right.
But it's really kind of cool to see that back.
I wish we'd have gotten a little bit more of that. Honestly, man. I do wish we got more seasons, only for those reasons, right? I would have liked to have gone more into the politics side of how things are operating under the Empire before he dissolves the Senate, because essentially what happens after Mon Mothma does what she does, he uses that essentially as an excuse to dissolve the Senate, and I would have loved to dive more into the Coruscant politics of things, because a lot of people were cheering and for Palpatine. They were booing. Mon Mothma's speech, and there was just where do people stand. I would have liked to have seen a couple more senators involved, being essentially, hey, we back you in secret. And then I also would have liked to explore some of those aspects too, where we get to see their relationship side of things, where, hey, he sucks, but I'm using him for a purpose. That's why I'm still here. That would have been cool to see as well.
Yeah, I'm trying to find the damn book. I keep forgetting.
Well, while you do that, the next 3 episodes start off our Gorman arc, where Bix and Cassian get stashed in that safe house that we become very familiar with in Coruscant, which I think is pretty cool. And this is when Cyril makes contact with the local resistance of the Gorman people. And Willman also brings Saw Gerrera a very valuable gift. Saw is totally an absolute unhinged. Smart. He's unhinged, but he's also extremely smart. It's one of those things where Saw is both a liability, but him and Luthen, right? Looking at the two of them, a lot happens for the rebellion because of that. Like, Saw sniffed out that Empire, their spy, and then Luthen was kind of a loose cannon at certain points and doing his own thing. But look at what happens. I mean, what happens if it's not Saw and people don't know how to sniff out that Imperial spy? And that's with Willman. And Willman was taught everything that he needed to know about what he needed to do, and then boom, they kill the spy and everything, which I thought was really cool. And so really a lot. It goes to show that what I love about that is how imperfect everybody is on both sides. They are bad guys all around, and going into episode 5, Cassian goes to Gorman for the first time, where he checks into the
fashion designer.
Yeah, dude, he looked so good too as the fashion designer.
He did. I love that him and Luthen, that's like their cover is to be like fashionable
so much
carefree,
whole thing and everything. And this, Cyril also goes back to Coruscant for an ISB briefing. This is where he visits Bix, and Luthen says, even when it wears off, the nightmares return. And it's not until later on with Luthen that we see that he was an actual true, he was in the army, and that whole sequence while they're killing all those civilians and he's yelling, please make it stop, make it stop.
Yeah.
In like just the background noises of the people on the radio talking about gunning people down. And
he obviously wasn't okay with that. But
absolutely insane.
Going back to Saw too, did you catch him call himself cannon fodder? I thought that was really funny.
Did he? I did not catch that.
He said something about like, I'm not going to be cannon fodder. I was like, did he really just say that? Like, I thought that was hilarious. That like cannon fodder exists inside Star Wars.
I do think that. I mean, that he kind of is though. Essentially, he's out there. What he's doing is he's taking on the Empire in these fights. They're doing terrorist acts. And they're cannon fodder because they're taking losses, but they're also finding weaknesses and weak points too at the same time, which not for nothing, you kind of have to do. You're going to lose people, but at the same time, you gain knowledge. And as sad as that is, that's war. Again, that's such a realistic war.
That Rido that he was like dealing with Willman, and you saw Willman like take the mask off or whatever. It's like how much of that
huffing, man. Oh, he's huffing, yeah.
But how much of that has impacted Saw's like level of risk adverseness, or obviously he lost his sister. Right. We saw that in Clone Wars or Rebels. We should do an episode on him next year, like a full.
Honestly, we should, because his past when Clone Wars was crazy because his sister dies.
He was in Rebels too, because Ezra, I remember they have an encounter with him.
They do. And so he's in Rebels, he's in Clone Wars, and he's in Andor, and then he's obviously in Rogue One where he bites the dust, but he plays pivotal roles.
A lot of people bit the dust, but he bit it early.
Everybody dies. When I told you that one, you're like, I haven't watched it yet, because I go, prepare for a lot of people to die, and I was like, Lauren, do you know what we're watching? Everyone's dying. Nobody makes it out of this,
said to me
right?
when we watched Rogue One the first time. I'm like, wow, this is really sad. She's like, did you not know what this is about?
Hey, I don't know if you knew this, but everybody's definitely toast.
But Andor made it all sadder.
It did. And now in the next episode, we're 6, the last of this batch of episodes, that, Luthen's visits, and they kind of some tension between the two. Vel and Cinta take the job down in Gorman, where they go to start to do heist because they are building an armory on Gorman at this point, and they need to prove it, essentially, which leads Cassian to essentially being like, you guys are reckless. You don't know what you're doing, because at this point, he kind of understands. He's smart. He knows you need an army, but you can't fight alone. And what they're doing is recklessly fighting alone rather than joining up with a larger force. And so they're doing whatever. And this is when essentially Cinta the old dude there gets into the scuffle, accidentally shoots, and then Cinta dies. And that's a very sad moment because that's like a big character. And Vel, those two share a very beautiful moment.
They just reconciled.
Yeah, and their love for each other.
You even see her later say something to Andor about Bix.
Yeah, and
I think she knew Bix was pregnant.
I definitely think she did as well. And it's just really sad. And again, shows the whole war where we move forward now. The ISB and everybody has moved in now. But go ahead.
But did you feel I actually felt bad for Cyril?
You do.
I feel like he is just like this. He's such a dork, and he just wants to follow things by the book. And that's why he was going after Cassian, because he was following the rules. And we all hated him, at least I did, because he was on the wrong side morally. But I don't think he knew that. And
he really didn't. He's a dude who grew up in the Empire, right? Like, he was brainwashed.
Yes. And oh my God, and what a horrible mother. And like with the Dedra, when she's like, I did like the scene when she had the conversation with the mom. I was like, good for her. Because I always had mixed feelings about Dedra, because I felt like she wasn't taken seriously as like a woman, even though she was figuring shit out that the rest of them weren't. Yeah. But I mean, she in the end was just
okay. But I'm glad you did bring this up, because in those early episodes where we get to see them playing house on Coruscant, it was kind of beautiful.
I was thrown off.
Their
I was
relationship
like,
is very awkward. You're just
then when she's like, turn off the lights, and he's like, okay.
The two of them, I feel like it's very dry and boring. But it works for them. It did.
Yeah.
And then, I felt when she spoke up to Cyril's mom, who was an awful person, I was, good for you, Dedra. Like, awesome. She's a girl boss. She's working for the Empire, sure, but maybe they'll both come around.
Taking care of business.
Yeah. For a little bit there, I thought they might both come around and maybe end up working for the rebellion.
But then Cyril, when he discovered he had been being manipulated.
Oh, man. Okay.
And he thought he was doing what was good. He didn't think that he was doing anything wrong. And he felt bad when shit hit the fan.
He did. So.
And then he took all his anger out on Cassian. And Cassian's like, who are you?
7, 8, 9. This is where the Gorman massacre, which we're going to cover next week and go in depth in a little bit more. This is where Cassian and Bix now are in Yavin. They've made a home, living life, playing house. Things on Gorman are at an all-time. Dedra, how do you pronounce her name? She's there. Cassian is wounded, and that's when Bix takes him to a force healer, and he doesn't believe in any of that stuff. It's always crazy to me, but it also makes sense because they erased the Jedi. A lot of people probably never met a Jedi, so it was very easy to erase a lot of what the Jedi did. Mm-hmm. And, this is when Krennic essentially activates the plan for Gorman, leading into episode 8, where the actual massacre takes place, where Cassian goes back to Gorman now. He's healed a little bit more from the force healer, which he was basically like, Bix, what the hell? And he gets to Gorman. He's there, and this time, not as a fashion designer, of course. And that's where we get that really cool moment with the hotel clerk who, I never put you in the system. He's there as a reporter. He goes, I never put you in the system. Rebellions are built.
He figured it out right away. Like, this guy was a fashion designer last time. He was here asking questions about the Gorman massacre or what had happened before.
The Tarkin, when Tarkin landed on everybody,
Yeah, and so he immediately knew when this guy was showing up looking like a completely different person what was going on.
Exactly, and this is when they open up the plaza, they kill their own members.
Oh, yes, they brought in green soldiers to be slaughtered. I mean, that was it. Like, he's like, these aren't even men. And they're like, don't joke. And like, that was when I realized that they had brought them in to be killed, to make a point, I was like, ugh.
It was just the planning and the fact that this happens in real life is so disgusting. And you could just feel the really good part of this episode is things slowly are building and building. You feel the music going into it. The people of Gorman are, chanting as they march into the plaza that has been reopened because the Empire has opened it into a killing field, basically fish in a barrel. And everybody kind of realizes that Cass is there to kill Dedra.
The sniper's Empire.
Yeah, and then the sniper ends up killing one of their green troops, and that's when all hell breaks loose.
Thank God he didn't kill Dedra, because she was very helpful to the rebellion.
I also, during this whole sequence, when Cyril goes into their headquarters and he's in that room with all the K2 units, for a second, I thought they were all going to be murdered by K2 units. Did you get that feeling?
I did for a second, and especially because the one looked at him, or one was still staring. And then I was like, I wonder if that's K2SO that later gets like reprogrammed.
That was my other thought. So I, for a second, was essentially, the Empire's going to kill anybody that knows about this. That way nobody could ever speak about what happened. And then, Cyril goes in there. He's found out what has happened, what's going on. He chokes, Dedra, which is a very uncomfortable moment, and also different side of things.
Yes, it was very interesting because I felt like it was the first time he was in control of a situation in their relationship.
Oh, without a doubt.
But I also feel like she kind of liked it. I don't know. It's very awkward and weird.
But it's also the other thing about fascism, right? Is she's essentially, we're going to be promoted. You didn't mind the promotions. We're going to be promoted. We're going to be heroes. We're going back home. We can live.
She's trying to make him feel like you're just as guilty as I am.
Exactly.
Because she's gaslighting him.
She used him.
I mean, the
she said, how long have you known?
Split his whole life by his fucking mother. And now she's doing it.
Was their relationship even real? Was she just using him the whole time for this whole thing? Or was their relationship real?
I think she was using him, but I think she genuinely liked him. I think when he saved her life on Ferrix, I think that was where they had a moment. Because when I first saw them together, I was like, oh, I was not expecting them to do that. But you did see that moment.
You do. At the end of season 1. Pisses him very uncomfortably and was like, when I tell you to get your stuff.
I think that's just how she is. I think she's just
very awkward.
She's a psychopath.
She is. But she is. And so Cyril's out there wandering around, and everything kicks off, and he's just in a moment of stunned. People are dying. And I liked when the K2 units come out, and the K2 units, instead of people getting up from being tossed around, they're dead. I thought that was a really nice touch because it showed that, no, these people are fragile. This is real. These K2 units are terrifying, and they don't go down easily.
You go from Roger to that. That's
these droids are terrifying.
Huge difference in battle droids, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, how would the Jedi have held up against an army of them?
Oh, you play against in Jedi Fallen Survivor, you have to kill some of those things, and they're a pain in the ass to kill. So I knew right away they were screwed.
But they're not all as hilarious as K2SO, obviously. I feel like K2SO would be, if Chopper could talk, I feel like it would be similar to that.
I wish we could live in a world where we get a buddy cop film of them, just to, give me a special presentation of those two, even though I know it can't happen, because you're right. I loved K2. I'm telling them I was kidnapped. That man you don't like is here. Are you here for backup? Nope. And he just tosses the guy over, and he used the one dude as a body shield too, walking up the hallway. Basically, the Star Wars hallway sequences with Luke, Vader, and K2.
Daredevil.
Exact. I was about to say that. They rival the Daredevil hallway sequences on just pure cinematic beauty. And he's so good. The Alan Tudyk is amazing. He's a treasure. And just everything K2 says, I'm so hooked. No matter what, he's hilarious.
Mm-hmm.
I will never understand "Waking Up Humans" or whatever he says. Just all those little quips are so much fun. But before we even get to K2, the massacre is going on. It's a very, very uncomfortable episode. And then Cyril, throughout the chaos, sees Cass and starts to beat the crap out of him in a very violent fight in the hotel lobby. And then Cass basically is just, "Who are you?" And it's wow, the writing, yes.
But I feel like Cyril was just taking out all his anger for the Empire, for Dedra, for his mother. Everything was on Cass, because I think he's also seeing, me trying to capture you is what led me to this.
1,000%. It's all Cass's fault that he's where he is, because if he had never met Cass, he probably would still be in a nice, cushy, job. He wouldn't have been to Gorman, his relationship, all that stuff. He wouldn't have known that they're massacring people.
Right, because he got demoted or fired or whatever.
Yeah. And then
with the whole thing in season 1.
Yeah. And so,
did we mention after episode 9 you should watch? We haven't gotten
episode 9 yet.
Oh, okay, my bad.
So we can go to episode 9, which is the Fallout now. That's why I was kind of going in order of talking about. And episode 9 is Welcome to the Rebellion. So this is where Mon Mothma makes her big speech. Her and Bail, who Benjamin Pratt plays, they're talking, and Bail says, "I got to stay here, go wreck shit." Mon Mothma is going to make this big speech, finds out that the dude she's been with has been a plant from Luthen since the wedding. Her driver is against her. Bail's team is compromised because Lonnie Young, how you pronounce his name, he has been, without him also, none of this happens, because he's the ISB guy who dies again unceremoniously. And
what happened to his wife and daughter?
He had the plant in Bail's team and got all of the information. And so it's that sequence where basically on Coruscant where now shit's real. And this is where you want to just go ahead with what you were going to say.
Yeah, so the book is actually Reign of the Empire, and I don't know if you can see it there, but it's actually
Mon there it is.
In that exact moment. So I'm guessing that's how the book ends in that regard, but I'm still early on. So after episode 9, I recommend going and watching Rebels season 3, episode 18. So the Ghost Crew is actually fueling their vessel, or fueling the vessel for Gold Squadron. And Erskine is with her, and that is the guy who Luthen recruited at the wedding that she gets all mad at. Yeah, and I didn't remember the random name of that guy. So then I watched this right after because I saw multiple posts on Instagram. Watch this right after, and I was like, oh, that's Erskine.
Oh, how cute.
So Mon is trying to connect all the rebel cells across the galaxy in this episode, and the Ghost Crew promises to get Mon to the meeting on Dantooine. Meanwhile, Thrawn has already guessed that Hera will take her through a nebula, and that is because the nebula that the smugglers use. So that is what they're doing, and they're trying to escape Thrawn and his crew to get Mon to Yavin.
Yavin, yep.
So I thought that was...
It was great. So the thing I loved about that was her speech in the Senate was different because even though Cass gets her out and delivers her, Clea's like, nope, she's not going with you. The, rebellion essentially wants her to go Gold Squadron. And then you're never getting credit for this big moment. And she's going to make a whole new speech. And I thought that was really clever of allowing Genevieve O'Reilly to have her moment in the Senate to deliver this powerful speech while also sticking with what happened in Rebels where she makes that other speech, and it was so clever. And the fact that Cassian has done all of this again, without Cass, without Lonnie, without Luthen, like Cassian Andor might be the most important person in Star Wars.
Butterfly effect.
Because if Cassian Andor doesn't join up in the rebellion, he doesn't do what he does, he doesn't, save Mon Mothma, he doesn't get the Death Star plans, Luke Skywalker's still just a dude on Tatooine. Luke Skywalker ain't blowing no Death Star up. And not for nothing, the Death Star's probably out there blowing up planets and stuff left and right because nobody's stopping it. Nobody knows how to. They don't even know about it this time because it's the energy
Galen Erso, I think, was going to be dead anyways.
Yeah, Galen Erso was definitely getting cooked. He was dying. They were 100% killing Galen Erso after the thing was complete. They no longer need him. And so Cassian Andor, legit the most important person in Star Wars. I'm going to say that and die on that hill because without him, you don't get Luke Skywalker. Without him, you don't blow up that first, Death Star. Without him, the Jedi don't come back. The Empire doesn't get defeated. Vader's still, Palpatine's man and everything like that. So I'm just saying. It was also really sad when Bix left. That scene was heartbreaking, but she did it because she knew Cass would never buy into the rebellion as long as she was around. And it was heartbreaking.
It was heartbreaking.
And, going from there to these final 3 episodes, which is essentially opening up with Luthen talking to Lonnie, who says, hey, because the signal chat was all wrong, man. They got this wrong signal chat where they put the Death Star. They leaked what the Death Star was in the signal chat and what their plans really were about the energy project, all because an email got sent to Dedra mistakenly. And she was, hey, I'm going to find Axis. They're going to get promoted. All of that good stuff.
She's a scavenger.
Lonnie tells, hey, I'm burned. He tells Luthen, just get my wife and kids. Where are we going? He says, Yavin. And then he kills Lonnie. And again, it's just so heartbreaking that Lonnie just gets shot in the chest off screen and he's just dead on a bench. And
I was really mad about that because I was like, did Luthen do this or was somebody watching Lonnie and shot him from a distance? And why would Luthen do that? That's so messed up.
Because, he's burned at that point, right? So is he trying to protect it? Well, no, it's because this is the thought. Because if Lonnie says he's burned, so he mentions his wife and kid. Now, did the Empire get to him and bug him? Or whatever, was he going to essentially tell the Empire where they were so that way he
could save his wife and kid?
Yes. So it was smart that the Empire was never going to find that information. He had to do it. Luthen had to kill him because he just did not know.
It's outside of Clea, I don't think Luthen viewed anybody's life of higher value than
exactly. That's what I'm saying. Luthen was willing to do anything and everything, and
but I guess when you do that, you're just as bad as the Empire.
Again. Yeah, it's morally gray, right? Well, you're not killing innocent civilians, though. If you're Luthen, in some cases, maybe Saw might be maybe, right?
I could very easily see Luthen killing collateral damage. In the end, we have to do what we have to do.
I mean, but that again, here's that's where things get. That's why there's so much gray in war. Is you have to do some things sometimes. There's going to be look at World War II. Civilian casualties because the Allies were bombing important German sites. They were bombing Berlin.
But Luthen didn't feel bad about it.
Maybe
It's
he
like
did.
Wolverine is the kind of character that will do the things that nobody else wants to do. He'll get his hands dirty because he knows it's for the greater good. But he always saves as many innocents as he can, and he feels bad for the ones he can't save.
But here's the thing:
Luthen does not feel bad for the ones he can't
under
save.
Imperial rule, where they're just killing everybody. So it's that: are you going to kill one to save 1,000?
I'm just saying Wolverine would do what needs to be done, but he would feel bad about it. Luthen does not.
And I don't disagree about it. But again, we'll look at what Luthen has gone through.
And Wolverine will carry those lives with him forever, whereas Luthen just...
I'm devil's advocate here. Maybe he does, but he does because I don't think he does. Because he specifically tells Bix that when the drugs wear off, you still hear the screams and everything comes back. I think he still carries it around with him.
Oh, and he was talking about when he found Clea.
Yeah. And so he carries all that around with him. I think he has a conscience, and he's just really like young. I did too. Unfortunately, though, he had to go. I knew he was going to die.
He looked like he was from the 70s and everything.
He did. And, I love when Dedra shows up to the shop and they have that back and forth and Luthen's toying with her.
And she's acting so cocky.
There's a lot in this shop too. All right. We had a piece of the Mortis wall. I believe it was the Mortis wall, either that or it was the World Between Worlds tablet.
And isn't that where Ahsoka is right now at this moment?
I think so, yes. And he had a Gungan skull. He had an Amidala Naboo headpiece. It probably wasn't hers, but it was a headpiece like hers.
I did see that, yeah.
He had some Mandalorian armor. He had the Jedi Temple guard mask. He had Sankara stones. So the MacGuffin of another well-known Lucasfilms production, Indiana Jones in the Temple of Doom, the Sankara stones.
That was on there season 1, right?
Yep, he had that.
I remember hearing that. That's so funny.
He had Sith and Jedi holocrons. He had Starkiller's
You can buy those
armor. And Starkiller was in a game, The Force Unleashed. He was Vader's apprentice. So he has Starkiller's armor. He had a Wookiee helmet, a Gungan shield, and he had some carbonite blocks and things like that. So there was a lot of cool little Easter eggs that he has inside of his shop as well. But that whole back and forth, he ends up stabbing himself. And that's when he gets taken to the hospital. And this is where we're focusing on Clea. And she goes undercover in the hospital. We get her backstory. She was hiding on the ship. Luthen saved her, grew up basically teaching her terrorism. And we see that scene of them on Naboo where she was going to press the button and he took it from her and blew up the stuff on the bridge. And it was just crazy because, again, they're killing civilians and she watched it happen. And she has this awful, tragic childhood due to the Empire. And she hates Luthen, but also looks at him kind of like a father figure as well. And it's just this really complex relationship. It's, again, just so beautiful. And some Easter eggs.
Am I your daughter now?
Yeah.
Well, when it's relevant.
Convenient or whatever, right? And, the hospital that Luthen's actually treated in, it's called the Lina Rowe Medical Center, when Lina Rowe was the Chancellor of the Republic during the High Republic era, and it features in a variety of High Republic stories. Luthen and Clea were on Naboo. The game that Cassian, Melshi, and K2 play is called Rianza, and it was actually designed by the art and graphics team. And many faces also, as the whole series wraps up, are from Rogue One. So Melshi, of course, we saw General, Raddus.
And he was in season 1 too.
He was in Narkina.
One Way Out.
Mm-hmm. And then the little turtle-like guy on Scarif was one of the people running as well. But so that was kind of some Easter eggs. But it was really kind of crazy how, Luthen, somehow they collected artifacts. They were trading. She was very good at it. Mm-hmm. She gets into the hospital, and that's where they go to arrest Dedra because, hey, you actually are wrong. You
done messed up, yeah.
You should have reported. I know, but I found Axis. And that whole scene with Krennic, and he's just pokes her on the head, that was ad-libbed by Ben Mendelsohn. He ad-libbed poking her on the head, and it's one of the best scenes. It's crazy.
You can see the uncomfortableness.
Yeah, and he's like, he just pokes her on the head and like shoves his finger down, and just every scene he's in, he steals. And I also love when, what are we going to tell people, when they're looking for Clea, and what's his name?
The disease.
Patagus goes, she's diseased. And, Krennic goes, there you go.
What
are you waiting for? Or he's like, there you go. Why are you still here? But he says it in this like really calm but unsettling tone. And it's so good, man. Like, oh my God. And she ends up.
Yeah.
What? No, go ahead. I'm just over here rambling now. So
No, that guy, I kept thinking, I'm like, is he in the originals? Like, why does, like, because, you know, they're so good at casting younger versions of people and whatnot. And I kept driving me nuts. And then when he shot himself, I was like,
he's in Game of Thrones.
Yeah, he's the Meister in Game of Thrones. Yeah. I had to Google it. It was driving me nuts. I'm like, no, I know he's in, like, something.
Yep,
so, yeah, but that was very interesting that when he knew he was going to kill himself, and he even tells the stormtroopers, like, no, let's have a moment. But yeah, no, Ben Mendelsohn is what it is, because I've gotten so used to seeing him as Talos and loving him as Talos. And so it was fun to go back and see him as Orson Krennic.
Yes. Oh man, it was so good. And you know, it's really also sad too when Clea gets actually in there and she unhooks the respiratory system, dies. And again, it wasn't this, oh, I got shot and I'm giving you my final thoughts. Is he stabbed himself. He was out cold and she unhooks it and then she moves on. Mm-hmm. And they're thinking it's a 3-person team, but it's only Clea who's a badass dude. Oh my, this is her first acting credit. Did you know that?
Oh, really? No.
Yeah. This is her. Andor is her first acting credit. Yeah. Wow. So damn good.
Wow. And look who she was going like most of her scenes were with. Yeah.
You know, Stellan Skarsgård, who is no slouch
huge.
Because he has sons that are some of the craziest, best actors. And I'll watch whatever they're in.
I don't even think I put all that together that they were all related. I just think of him. Skarsgård I think family of Thor and
good.
Well, speaking of siblings too, we got Thrawn and Galen Erso are brothers.
Oh yeah, I didn't even think about that. The Mickelson.
Oh, yeah. What, because one's blue, they can't be brothers?
Again, nope. You're damn right. And no, but again, Clea escapes. She gets to the stash house again, and she's trying to call for help, and she's very desperate. She's sad. She's in this state where she just killed her father-like figure.
Yeah,
and
she did exactly what he would have wanted her to do.
She had to.
And Dedra's the one that picked up on the little Morse code, like old school stuff.
When she's sitting in there,
she figured that out, and she still ended up in.
She's in jail. She goes, "Go check back of the shop there. He's got an old,
radio. I found one on Ferric."
She's so smart. And she ends up in prison. And I'm so glad that for her, they didn't kill her, because I think it's top tier writing to have her melting away in a prison. Mm-hmm. She worked so hard. She created a massacre. She did all of this stuff. And
privy to the Death Star, and not everybody was.
And at the very end, she was tossed to the side and sitting in a prison wearing the same stuff that Cass was at one point. And it's just, damn, Tony Gilroy, you son of a bitch. So good.
I was going to say, who's Tony? Okay.
Tony Gilroy. Yeah.
Gotcha. Yeah.
And
then the one guy listening to Nemec's Manifesto.
Yeah. Well,
talking about,
yeah.
Have
you heard this
crazy.
Before? Bits and pieces. And that's when he realizes, oh, this is way too big, because the tighter the Empire squeezes, the more
they fight back.
And it's such a good allegory for
real life.
I mean, what we're going through,
A lot of things in this hit hard for what's actually happening today.
Just much like one specific line from K2. I was at the parade. The Emperor was there. A lot of people are going to be able to say that in a couple of weeks when we have our $45 million parade for Supreme Leader there.
And then one point K2SO said, disobeying orders is so refreshing.
My favorite line is, I'm telling them I was kidnapped. It's just,
yes, that was great. He's like, oh, I'm here for you, Jen, or something like that. And she's like, oh, thank you. He goes, Cassian said I had to be.
Yeah.
Oh yeah. We please do not resist.
And oh man. So I love that they had the radio on. Willman had it. His girls, what's this? You cheating on me?
What was that about? That was weird. That was unnecessary. She could have just been like, hey, this is going off. What is this? Instead, she got all mad at him like some girl was calling. I don't know. That was bizarre.
Hey, who's Morse coding you right now? Who's beeping you on your
that
beeper?
Didn't
is that what
make
that was
sense.
Like? Was that
what does this beeper code mean? It says like 555. I know what that means.
And so he takes it, and they're trying to figure out what's going on. And I also love that Draven and everybody thinks it's garbage. But once again, Cass and crew, Melshi, and K2, they arrive on Coruscant, their comms go out, and then K2 gets out, and he's just going on a killing rampage, which is, while, Clea is telling Cass, hey, Death Star, Galen Erso, all of this stuff, she's ready to die. And I think it's so amazing that finally they rescue her. She gets to Yavin. At first, she doesn't like any of those people on Yavin because they looked at Luthen as though he was crazy and they didn't want to work together.
Like he was Saw Gerrera, yeah.
Exactly. And she gets there and now she's kind of found a home. And it was really sad when Vel was essentially telling Cass, be there for her. And he goes, I'll think about it. And he
for Bix.
No, I thought she was talking about Clea. Clea needs you.
Oh, I thought she was talking about Bix because that was because she had mentioned finding Bix and he's like, she wouldn't be safe with me right now. I thought they were talking about Bix.
Oh,
and that's
maybe
why
they were.
I thought that Vel knew she had a baby because I thought that she was hinting because he asks, is she safe? And she's like, that's what I've heard.
Well, nonetheless, Cass doesn't see any of them ever again.
No.
Because he hops
at
the end and goes, and that's where Rogue One starts. And it's
so one of the beautiful things that I thought that they did that was great in the end of Andor was the fact that none of them wanted to listen to Andor when he went to go rescue Clea. And when she came back with that information, they were ignoring him.
Oh,
so when
yes.
Jyn Erso was saying things in Rogue One and they're not listening to her, he's like, I knew they weren't going to hear you. I knew they weren't going to listen to you. I believe you. Let's go.
Well,
and I don't know if he would have been as quick to do that if he hadn't experienced being her in that exact situation, literally like the day before.
Well, exactly, because, they get there and Bail Organa and the other girl, they're not buying into, okay, how do you know this is true? And essentially what I really love is that he stands up for Luthen. Cass is, hey, he did all this. He died for this. If he's wrong, he's wrong, But what if he's not? And Bail even comes around and he goes, I'd like to go down swinging, fighting the Empire. And then he hits Cass with, may the Force be with you.
Yeah.
It was,
I like that.
Oh my God. And that leads to Cass. And I thought the music as we get Cass and everybody seeing where they're at. Cass is walking to the ship. We see Bix in the wheat field holding the baby.
With B2 Emo.
B2 Emo. And just everybody's Clea looking out at the rebellion soldiers. They're in boot camp essentially. Mm-hmm. And a lot of them are going to die like in 2 days at that. And it's peak Star Wars because no matter what happened,
heading to Ring of Kafrene. Like he's heading there.
He's heading, and that's where Rogue One picks up, where he shoots the guy
like
on
immediately.
Kafrene. Yeah, it's this is what I love. And this is why it's peak Star Wars, is because Star Wars, no matter what happens, no matter how bad it gets, they always end their movies or shows on a hopeful note. And, we saw it in Empire Strikes Back. Luke, Leia, and them are looking out into the stars. We saw at the end of episode 3, we had Luke being delivered on Tatooine as Obi-Wan watches. In this, even, we have, again, Bix with the baby, which, by the way, people, it's not Poe Dameron. Stop that. It's not Poe. Star Wars issue number 12, they explain who Poe's parents are. It is not them. Go read a freaking book.
Canon?
It's canon. Okay. It's not Poe Dameron. Poe Dameron is born 2 years after the battle at Yavin, and Poe's dad dies later on. It's not Poe. Stop, please.
But anyway, it's someone close to Poe's age.
Yes, but it is not Poe. Please stop, people.
I would think Bix would probably want to try to keep her kid out of the rebellion just because she saw what it did to Andor.
Very, very curious. Also, I know General Draven ends up being killed by Darth Vader because Darth Vader force snaps his neck, but I would love a series following the events of this. I want to see Mon Mothma. I want to see General Draven. I want to see what's going on because I loved the realness of this rebellion being built. Now I want to see the rebellion after the first Death Star gets destroyed. That spark. And I want to see how everything goes behind the scenes after that Death Star gets blown up. Because imagine you're this rebel soldier. You're getting your ass kicked. You're all these sort of things. And some farm kid from Tatooine shows up, and then 2 days later he blows up this Death Star, and now all of a sudden you're like, what just happened? And things turn around like that. You go from no hope to this, some farmer just blew up this Death Star. What is happening here? And I would love just to see the common man type deal. Yeah, damn Nepo babies.
Does he really have the Jedi Force? Like, didn't they kill all the Jedi? Weren't the Jedi traitors?
You're telling me that guy?
Did we ever find out what the Jedi actually did?
Scariest man in the galaxy?
This sounds like an inside job.
Fake news. It's fake news.
Fake news.
Speaking of which, I loved the journalist reporting the wrong things about what was going on in Gorman. That was very creepy because it was very realistic about the reporters and the terrorist attacks on Gorman and everything. That's very real world as well.
And Cyril telling his mom, like, it's all made up, Mom. It's all just rumors. But that was all over the place too, because he was saying what he wanted the rebels there to hear so that they would recruit him to their side.
Pretty much. Yeah. It's just poetic. It's art. What do you have to finish up as we kind of wrap up our Andor? Because I can gush about this for hours on end.
So one thing, because I put on Rogue One after this, and one of the things I noticed, the dude in front of Darth Vader's chambers, it's like Lord Vader, and he's just like there for him. He was in the new Comic Book Day comic.
Oh, he was?
Do you remember the one? I assume that's him. I need to like go back and like double check. But do you remember there was because it was a bunch of stories, and there was one where it was like he was Vader's like servant for years.
I have to go back and read it. I honestly haven't read it. That's my problem.
Oh, okay. And like he didn't believe he was dead, and he waited for him, but he waited for Vader, always. And when I saw that guy, I'm like, dude, I think that's the guy that's in the comic.
Oh.
So I just have a couple fun facts to wrap it up.
Yeah,
Diego Luna actually grew up thinking that R2's name was Little Arthur because R2 sounds like Arturito, which means Little Arthur in Spanish.
Oh, that's good.
Bix and Cass actually both did their Spanish dubs for the characters, so I thought that was really cool.
That's fun.
And my last fun fact is the Gorman Plaza was a 500-foot-long outdoor set built on a backlot of Pinewood Studios. It's a really pretty set.
I love the real on-site. Everything they did was in person, on-site, all of that stuff. This is beautiful. It's just beautiful. I mean, this show's perfect. I don't know how you follow it up.
Beautiful.
If I'm Star Wars, I am green lighting something to follow this up and ride the wave ASAP. You gotta ride how hot this is right now.
I wish the Ghost Crew had gotten a mention, but yeah.
I mean, definitely agree. I can agree with that. But at the same time, they had their time to shine in Rebels. This was a Cassian Andor rebellion story, so they.
But just like how they had a General Syndulla mention in the background of Rogue One, like it would have been nice.
But that was before they got this.
If Mon was like, if it weren't for you and the Ghost Crew, I would have never made it here.
Maybe we'll get that in the Mon Mothma series that I really am trying to pitch to Star Wars. That I don't care. I'm pitching it. No, I'm not going in there pitching a show. I'm just hoping they make that show. Just hoping, but that's what I have. Next week we're going to wrap up Star Wars week already. Wow.
I guess so. Yeah.
We're actually going to talk about the Gorman Massacre, go into the depths of it, explain a little bit what happened as it all unfolds. Maybe we'll chat a little bit more Star Wars as well. But aside from that, we've got a lot of stuff that's out there right now. Go listen to our past Star Wars episodes. And, Captain America Brave New World's getting ready to come out. So make sure you watch that. And then go read all of our comic book recs on nerdinitiative.com, or you can go to our link tree in the bio, check out our comic book recs there, find our past episodes. You can support the show, patreon.com/HopsGeekNews. Shout out to all of our patrons. And, they've been trying to get us to watch Midsummer, so maybe I might do that with them this week.
I can't do it again.
Busy. I don't want to, but they've been trying to get us to watch it again. I might for DT.
DT made me watch it once. I can't do it again, man. I can't do it again.
See. But we do movie nights. We do ad-free episodes, early episode drops. We send you a little care package and some things like that. So if you support the show, we appreciate you. And then everybody else, we will see next week. May the Force be with you.